Good morning, ladies. As Mage has introduced me, I am Sipesi Dlamini, and I'm a child of God. Yes, I'm here as a psychological counselor, but first and foremost, I am a child of God, and I'm here to share my story. I will talk about the mental aspects of things, the topic, basically, I'll cover that, but most importantly, I'm here to share my story. As you can see on the outline, I will be talking about, I'll define what mental health is, what mental illness is, the types of mental disorders and symptoms, the support, and I will conclude. Mental health. We normally explain this using very complicated and hard to understand definitions. I've tried to simplify it. So I've defined mental health as a relationship between our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors. And this looks like, I've given an example of two people that experience similar life experiences. So you could have two students that both fail a test. One is disappointed and commits to working extra hard for the next one. And the other could think, I can't keep doing this. I'm tired, I work hard, and I keep failing. And they've also been disappointed, but they decide that I'm not gonna do this again. So these are people that have experienced the same stressors, failure, and they respond differently to them. So that is what mental health is, how we respond to life's highs and lows. And I say highs for a reason. It's not just the lows that, my mental health refers to when I'm feeling low and down and I feel like, life is tough. Then me responding to that then explains if I'm mentally healthy or not. It also talks to our highs. When everything is going well in your life, how do you respond to that? This then brings me to talking about mental illness. This is a subject I'm very passionate about because I myself have experienced being mentally ill. And there's normally memes on social media that talk about, the psychology students, of course, will be sick because you're reading about it. So it's like a textbook definition of, you're going to be ill. You're drowning yourself in that information. I am not sure if that is true or not, but you guys will decide that as I continue to speak. Our mental illness affects our mood, behavior, and thoughts in relation to our mental health. So mental health also looks at your mood, your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions. Now, mental illness is when you have maladaptive traits. So you're still feeling, you're still thinking, you're still responding to life's stimuli and just stressors, but how now you're responding maladaptively. It's affecting you. So it's a continuum. You have someone who's mentally healthy on this end and someone who's mentally ill on this end. This one is experiencing life. They're thinking, they're feeling, they're responding to life, and it's maladaptive. It's healthy, actually, because this is mental health. And then mental illness on this end is you're still experiencing the same things, but you're not coping. You are drowning, and it impacts your social life. It'll impact your work, how you relate to others, your family. It has an impact on that, and that is how we see that, there's a problem here, or this person is struggling and they're mentally ill. The causes of mental illness there's a long list of them. I'll just talk about a few. So there's the biological factors that could cause mental illness. So your genetics, your genes, this is when a person could have a chemical imbalance in their brain or hormonal imbalance. We all know as ladies that when you're PMSing, the symptoms that you feel, you can almost tell that it's almost that time of the month. So those are your hormones at play. The same thing applies with mental illness. We have some mental illnesses that are as a result of a hormonal imbalance. trauma at any stage in one's life. A lot of clinicians will talk about childhood trauma, but sitting here, I think a lot of us can attest to that we still experience trauma as adults, and that could have an impact on how you respond and maybe even result to you being diagnosed with a mental illness. A family history of mental illness. Children with schizophrenic parents have a predisposition to schizophrenia or any other psychotic disorder. This also applies with Alzheimer's and your neurocognitive disorder. So it also goes back to the genes point, genetic makeup, your environment. How is life at home, at work? Sometimes life at home is great, but you at work from 8 to 5, and what is happening there? I just started working, and yeah, it's tough. You go from being a child, from being auntie's baby, to being a subordinate, and there's deadlines, there's timelines, and you're dealing with people. So it's not just the work that you're dealing with, you also need to deal with the personalities at work. So that also could cause a mental illness. A toxic work environment, for example, could cause a mental illness. It is important to note that these are just some of the mental illnesses, and this is not the full spectrum. This is just some of them. I have chosen these because they're normally experienced by people in this age group. And mental illness is not diagnosed by just anyone. So you don't go online and then you Google that I've been feeling sad. I have a low mood. Hey, I'm not eating. You don't do that. A mental health practitioner is the person that's qualified to tell you what's going on. So I do recommend that you guys see those people after this conversation. It could trigger negative emotions. It could trigger a lot, but talk to someone who is qualified. It's nice to have your support structure, your friends, your family. It helps, but talk to someone who's a professional and start treatment if that is what you need. Okay. The symptoms now of mental illness. Again, this is not the full spectrum. These are just the ones that I have chosen to talk about. Your persistent feelings of sadness. This is not just, I burnt my really nice dress when ironing and preparing for church this morning, then I feel sad about it. It's okay, feel sad about it. It's normal, it's within your, we call that, it's life happening. Your persistent feelings of sadness, it's the sadness that won't leave you. So you're just always sad. You don't know why you're sad. I'm just always feeling down and I'm tired. It's a lot. Some will say, "Kuningi, guys, kuningi." You know, this is what I'm talking about. And you're finding it difficult to feel positive emotions. So you're just sad, and that's it. And then your excessive worrying. You have this uncontrollable, and you're just always worrying. It's uncontrollable and it's long-lasting. This speaks to, there's normal worry. Actually, a bit of anxiety is good for us. It keeps us from dangers. It also helps you to prepare. You have a presentation at work, you prepare because anxiety. But now if it's excessive, it is uncontrollable. You keep thinking about this thing. You keep thinking about it. It could be things that have happened before, things that are yet to happen, but you just keep thinking about it and it's stressing you. Now that is maladaptive. I keep using that word. It basically means it's not serving you. It works against your health. An example. Okay, I'll also talk about mood swings. Now, your extreme mood swings would be an abrupt change from feeling happy to feeling sad. It's not just happiness or sadness, though. You could feel happy now and feel irritable by 12 noon, and you don't know why. So no one's done anything to you. You're still seated here, you're having your food, you're drinking your coffee, but you just feel like, I need to leave this place. Why is she so loud? Why is she, or why are these people laughing? What's so funny? You're irritable. Your mood has changed. So these are extreme mood swings. So your mood does this. It's not stable. A loss of interest in activities normally enjoyed, a low libido, hypersomnia, and insomnia. This is not just you're sleeping more than you normally do or you're sleeping less. It speaks to you sleeping and not resting. So you're getting the required hours, but you don't feel rested when you wake up. That is what insomnia and hypersomnia mean. Then the suicidal ideation. This refers to thoughts, just wishes and ideas about death. So you may not necessarily have a plan to say, I will leave church and then I will take a chemical, for example, and die. But you're just thinking, yeah, just a coma for 6 months, just so I rest. A vacation, just so I leave and just escape. Or I just want to be alone somewhere. You almost want to escape, and if someone gave you the option to say, hey, what about death? You wouldn't think twice and just think, I'm going for it, let's die. So that is what suicidal ideation is. Now the types of mental disorders. Again, this is not all of them, but just a few that I've chosen to speak about today. First, you have your mood disorders. I'll speak about depression. Depression is similar to the symptoms that I've just been talking about. Your sadness, your loss of interest, feelings of emptiness and hopelessness, your sleep disturbances. There's also a change in appetite. So now you're eating more or less. Or the food doesn't taste the same. You're not able to enjoy it. You could be depressed. There's types then of depression. There's types of depression. This is just an overall picture of what it looks like, but you could experience depression for different reasons and at different phases of your life. The most common one is a major depressive disorder. So when a person says, I suffer from depression or I am living with a depressive disorder, they normally refer to that one. Again, the specifiers to you being diagnosed with a mental illness, these are just the symptoms. You could be sitting there and thinking, I experience maybe 60% of them. You need to talk to a professional because for them to diagnose you, you must have experienced this for a certain period of time. Your presentation is what they look at. So you don't just look at this and say, yeah, depression. Anxiety disorders. Excessive anxiety and worry, I have explained. Panic attacks. This is an abrupt, intense surge of fear or discomfort, and it lasts for a few minutes. So you're experiencing symptoms of anxiety, but in just a few minutes. Normally, the people that experience panic attacks don't remember what was going on. So, and their presentation is different. You could be sitting in a corner, you're trembling, you're shaking, and it's a lot. Just picture a sensory overload. Everything is happening all at once, and you're scared. And it could be you're scared for, there's a reason, or it could be there's no reason. You're just having a panic attack, and you're not able to trace it back to anything that has happened in the morning or the week. It's just a panic attack. It is important to seek professional help and unpack that. So a person could be sweating, palpitations, trembling, and increased heart rate. Then, the third symptom there is feelings of impending danger, panic, or doom. There's people that just always feel like something bad is going to happen. You just wake up and I can just feel it. Something bad is going to happen today. And then tomorrow you wake up again and say, I mean, yesterday was a good day, it wasn't as bad, but I still feel like it's coming. It's coming. It's just, yeah. Or with parents, I'm not a parent, so I take what I'm saying with a pinch of salt. But with parents is maybe my child is not safe out there. Will Malume get the child on time from school? And it's something that you constantly worry about. Every day you're always thinking, is the child safe? Is the child okay? See, please take the child to the station, and then when they come back, she must find you there waiting. You're always scared, and you feel like there's doom, you're panicked. There's something that's going to happen, and it's not good, it's something bad. Then this speaks to rumination. You keep worrying about the same thing. Whether it's happened, whether it's happening, or it's yet to happen, you just keep worrying about things that are not really there. Maybe your feelings, the root of you worrying is valid and it's real, but the truth of it is right now you are not in danger, but you're still worried about that and you constantly think about it. I will talk about bipolar disorders next. Okay. I've chosen to speak about 3 symptoms or specifiers of bipolar disorder: your mania, major depressive episode, and psychosis. A manic person has an abnormally elevated mood. They are, I don't know how to describe this, but let me try. You just have a flight of ideas. You keep talking, there's no end. They just keep speaking and speaking and speaking. An inflated self-esteem. So they're very sure of themselves, and it's not constant, so it's not your personality. This is just happening maybe for a week or more, because for you to be diagnosed with a manic disorder or episode, it must have lasted for a week or more. So you don't feel like sleeping. So you're not tired. 3 hours is enough, and you can go for like 2 days functioning. You're on a high, is how we can put it. So you're on a high. Bipolar, I've mentioned, as a mood disorder. So it's either you're here or you're here. Here being manic, here being a major depressive episode, which is why you guys say when someone's angry, une bipolar, it's because they are here. So everything is elevated. Your mood, your symptoms, it's elevated. So you're operating here, and it could last for a week. Can we just take a moment to imagine you not sleeping for a whole week? And in the whole week, you've probably had like 9 hours of sleep at best, and you're working. So you're not just sitting and you're working, you're thinking, you have these grand ideas, these grand solutions, these big projects that you want to work on. And yeah, it's like, guys, don't you feel it? Like, I want to work, I'm good at this. And they normally practice very risky behavior. I thought I wasn't going to talk about this because we're in church. But normally you are engaging sexually with different partners, so not just one. You could sleep with 3 different people in one day. It's risky, I don't want to say it's an adrenaline rush because that is not what it is, but just shopping sprees, ladies, yes, shopping sprees. You go online and there's no end to it. There's no end. So you could spend a good 30K just on shoes, and sometimes it's money that you don't have. You're just spending because you're on this high. So hypomania it has similar symptoms, but it's just short-lived compared to a manic presentation. And then you have a major depressive disorder. It's a person experiencing symptoms of depression, but not the disorder itself. So you're feeling sad, you're feeling hopeless, you're feeling empty, and it's extreme because you crash. So imagine this is you the whole week, and then a few days later you crash. It's painful. I must talk about the pain as a symptom of mental illness as well. It's chronic. I know when we normally refer to terms chronic and all of those for medical conditions, for your arthritis, but imagine being in pain and no one can see it. You don't have a cast. You don't have a known condition to say, oh, I have cancer. You look as beautiful as you guys look, and you are living with pain every single day. You don't know where this pain is coming from. The clinicians could try and explain it, but are they really always accurate? Because what they do is they will psychoanalyze. It's your story, it's your presentation, but at the end of the day, you know what it's like. So mental illness is individualistic. We could experience the same traumas, but respond differently to them, and no person has the right to come and tell you that, oh, I've been depressed before and I read my Bible. Get over it. Oh, you guys aren't strong, your generation. Yeah, you guys are so weak. We were resilient. I mean, it could be, it's true, I don't know. I'm only in my early 20s, but it is your pain, and you know what you're going through. So, yeah, I was explaining a major depressive episode before I got carried away. Psychotic disorders. The specifiers here are delusions, hallucinations, and negative symptoms. Let me explain what a delusion is. Delusions are fixed false beliefs that conflict with reality. We have a culture that's growing of prophets, anointed prophets that hear from the Lord, and they hear of things that only they know of. You guys don't have that power to hear from it, so they will claim that they have the power to resurrect the dead. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but when it's you doing it and not God through you, then there's a problem. Examples could be the Messiah complex, where people genuinely believe that I have the ability to save. I have everything that God represents in their lives. They think they are able to do that. So it conflicts reality, and there's nothing that you can do to convince them otherwise. If I say I am this, I am this, even if you give them like compelling evidence to say it's not true, it doesn't matter. They believe it. They are delusional, and it is an illness. We loosely use the term to say, oh, stop being delusional. Like, are you for real? It is an illness, and it is a specifier for psychotic disorders. We also have hallucinations, and these are sensory. So you could see things that are not there. You could hear things that other people can't hear. You could feel things that other people can't. And it's a sensory experience. So delusions are in the mind. This is what a person believes. I believe this. And then hallucinations are sensory. I see it. So we're in a room like this, and someone could be seeing a shadow or a person, and we all can't see that person. They are psychotic. Normally, that is a specifier for psychosis. Negative symptoms just refer to a person who's flat. So this is the emotional aspect of it. So I've talked about your brain, your senses. Now your emotions are also involved in this. And this person may have a difficulty speaking. They show 0 to no emotion, and they withdraw. So they're just not there. They're sitting with us here, but they're not there. They could even dissociate, and dissociation is you're seated here, but you're not present. Everything is happening around you, and you're not present. And you could get home, and it's like, oh, how was the breakfast meeting? And you're like, I vaguely remember going to church for a breakfast meeting, but what really happened? You have experienced dissociation. We also have trauma and stressor-related disorders. The most common one here is PTSD, that occurs when a person has experienced or witnessed trauma. So it could be happening to you, or you could witness it happening to somebody else. And those are the symptoms that you can see. There's your avoidance symptoms. You'll try by all means to avoid thinking about it. So you've experienced a traumatic event or you've witnessed one, you don't want to, it's not a nice feeling. It doesn't bring positive and good emotions. So it's not something you want to sit and think about. But the problem happens now, even in a safe space, you still don't want to talk about it. It stressed you so much, I'd rather not. So you're avoidant of the symptoms that will trigger that memory. And then there's your re-experiencing symptoms. Flashbacks. You could be a 15-year-old that probably experienced trauma at age 5, and you start remembering. Normally clients will say, I remember each time I see a red building, my emotions, it doesn't sit well with me. Or I just feel this pain that I can't explain. So it's almost like your body's aware of trauma that happened that yet hasn't, how will I put it, your brain will suppress it. So nightmares related to the event, recurrent involuntary and intrusive memories of the traumatic event. So you don't plan, you don't sit and, drop a schedule to say it's 6 today. I'll sit and I'll just process. It happens. You could be in a meeting and you remember, and it of course won't bring up positive emotions. And then your reactivity symptoms, you become hypervigilant, persistent negative emotional state, you detach from others, you struggle to concentrate, and you experience sleep disturbances. Okay, those are all the disorders I will be speaking about today. There are different types, so for each, these are just categories. So that is why it's trauma and stress are related. Your psychotic, there's different types. So for your psychotic disorders, you could be schizophrenic. There's just different types of now the mental illness itself. I will say it again. If you think I might be experiencing this or know of someone who is, see a professional. They will be able to help you. Now, I'll just talk a bit about who Sihle is and my journey living with a mental illness. In 2017, I started seeing a therapist. Not voluntarily, I didn't want to see a therapist. I didn't understand why I had to see a therapist. But I had been sick. Now this was a medical illness. I had a tummy problem, which just wouldn't go away. So in a week, you'd find that I'm admitted in hospital for 2 days. 2 out of the 5 school days, I'm admitted. It then gets to a point where you think, am I even sick? No one said this to you, but am I even really sick? Or is it just I don't want to go to school? And I was in high school at the time. Each doctor, different doctors. So I went to Mbabane Clinic, I went to Women and Children, I went to Medicine, and they all said, Mage, we recommend that she sees a psychologist because there's no medical illness. She's medically fit. Now my tummy was sore. So that frustrated me to no end that what do you mean there's no problem? So of course with the first doctor you think they're just lazy. They should find the problem. Now the second one says it and you're thinking, let's try again. Third opinion, and they still say it's psychological. So in psychology we call that somatization. You have emotional problems that are manifesting physically. So you have headaches, recurrent headaches, you just have physical symptoms, and the problem isn't necessarily physical, but psychological. I experienced that in 2017, and my aunt said, okay, let's try it. Just one session, just one. And then you'll decide if you want to keep doing it, then sure. I went to see my therapist 2017, beginning of the year. It was okay. I mean, even then I wanted to be a psychologist, of which I'm still not a psychologist. Hopefully we'll get there. But I didn't understand the importance of this for me. A person who is mentally ill or just struggling looked a certain way. So the coma, Pastor Ray talks about that. They looked sick, and I didn't. So why am I seeing this person? Eventually, I did, and for 6 months I wasn't speaking. So there's also that reality. You don't just go to a therapist and it's an easy process. You need to find one you're comfortable with, one you trust, for it to work. And therapy is it's not nice. It's beneficial, but it's not real. It's not what we see in the movies where you sit on the doctor's couch and they give you water and tissues and you just speak and it's nice and you leave feeling light. No, because you can imagine you're a 20-year-old or you're a 30-year-old and you've been going about life that way, the way you have, and it's getting to a point where you're not coping. So you need to start speaking. All those 30 years of which you were quiet and you frankly didn't feel the need to speak, you go back and you speak. And normally we don't speak about things that hurt us. The nice things we share with everyone, it's nice, it's easier, but the painful things we keep to ourselves. So for 6 months I wasn't speaking, and then eventually my therapist said to me, it's either we do this or we don't. So the next session, don't come back if you're not going to speak. Just don't. It's not working, and I can't keep taking your money and claiming it with medical aid because this is not serving you. I went back for my session and I started speaking. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't nice. It was painful because now it feels like you're reliving everything. And these are things that probably happened when you were a child and you have the perspective of an adult. So it's easy to blame yourself and think, why didn't you speak? Why didn't you stand up for yourself? But now this is 20-year-old Sihle talking about 5-year-old me. That's not very fair or kind to yourself. So be mindful of those things. My journey, still seeing my therapist, went to school in 2018. Still experienced the tummy problems, but at least I was speaking. And my medication had started working then to show that it was a psychological problem. 2021, things got bad, not even worse, because I was stable, relatively. Now things got really messy is the word I want to say. I went for my first psychiatric admission in June 2021. I was doing my year 3, a Bachelor of Psychology. I was doing my Bachelor of Psychology year 3, and I went for a psychiatric admission. But it would be nice to start the story there. I started in Manzini. My aunt and I went to Manzini to see the psychiatrist there. You could go there and you won't always see her because there's a lot of us struggling with this, and there's just one of her. As far as I know, I'm not sure if that has changed. There's one psychiatrist in the country. So you can imagine the different hospitals she services. So we realized that this thing won't really work. I started seeing a psychiatrist in South Africa. And yeah, I went for my admission in June. I was started on treatment and I was diagnosed. I was diagnosed with a mental illness. And this is someone who has a psychological background, someone who understands what mental disorders are, but I still struggled. Because yes, you have let's say a depressive disorder, you have anxiety that you're dealing with, and then someone comes to say, oh, you also have PTSD, complex PTSD that you're dealing with, and then someone says to you, oh, you also have a personality disorder, you have a borderline personality disorder. It's like, no, I know what that is, and that is not me. It was a very difficult thing to accept, and I'll get to the reason why I haven't still accepted it, because what the doctor will say to you, what the psychiatrist will say to you, isn't necessarily true. We're Christians here, so I can speak about that. It's just, this is how you're presenting at that point. A mental disorder or illness or diagnosis is not your identity. You know who you are, the people around you know who you are, and most importantly, there's a person. God created you for a purpose. God has appointed you, God has anointed you, and that is where you get your identity from. So when you do those affirmations, it's nice to say, I am brave, I am strong, but maybe challenge yourself to now speak scripture. You know, to say, God has nothing but good plans for my life. God is faithful. God loves me. He's an all-knowing God. He sees. He's Jehovah El Roi. It just becomes easier as a Christian. I was mad at God. I didn't understand that why would a loving God allow me to experience all of these things? I didn't want to talk to people. I just wanted to stay in my room with the curtains closed and not speak, and not wake up to shower, to eat, to even pee. It was just too much. Just the thought of going to the bathroom to pee and come back and sleep was a lot, so I would rather not. Again, my aunt I get that you're going through the most, but at least let's open the curtains and eat and drink water. So 3 things. So I knew when she comes back from work, did you eat? The curtains, water. So you'd find that I'd have like cereal, just 1 biscuit of that Weet-Bix, so I can say I ate. I drank 1 cup of water. I won't tell her that, but I did drink water. And my curtains, that would bother me to no end, because I would wake up early just so I could open the curtains and go back to sleep. Because she will come into my room to check if the curtains, and she's not consistent, so she could come on Monday and not come for like 3 days, and then on Friday she's at your door. It's like, why? Anyway, that was 2021. I recovered. I did get better. I was started on medication. So I was on antipsychotics, anti-anxieties, antidepressants, and mood stabilizers. Now that means I was psychotic, I was depressed, I had anxiety, and my mood was not very stable. So when I speak of psychosis and seeing things that you don't know, I know what that looks like. And it doesn't look like that guy on the street. Yeah, frankly, you can tell, no. I still looked nice, I still came to church, but I was seeing things that other people were not seeing. It got to a point where if there was a sound like this one that I can hear this side, I would ask her, can you hear that? And she'd say, yes, sis. And sometimes I knew she couldn't hear it, but it was there. And that wasn't the only thing that I did or the support that I got from my family. We also prayed. Well, they prayed. I was angry at God. Why would I pray? They prayed, and they believed God for healing. That I will emphasize. We know when you guys give up as our parents. We can tell, you don't need to say it. You could be doing everything you've been doing consistently, but we're able to tell that you have given up on us. And I'm here to ask and plead that you don't. The disorders are different. Some are substance use disorders. So a person could be psychotic or depressed because they are abusing alcohol or drugs. And it's easier to say, oh, it's their choice. I mean, just don't do it. We talked about a disorder having an impact on our social lives, mental, psychological. It is an illness. Please don't give up on them. It gets it gets better. But I was saying we prayed. Pastor Bonsile and Pastor Ray were also praying. I didn't think I'd come out of it, honestly. I would get mad every morning, 1, because I had to open the curtains, also because I was alive. Why? What am I alive for? What could I possibly do? What impact will I have on this world? I'm just sick. I have all these disorders, a list of them, and frankly, it is not my doing. So I experienced trauma. It's just, I didn't ask for this. And God, where were you when all of this was happening? Because isn't it your God? Our days are preordained. Why am I experiencing? So this was your plan all along. I mean, I'm still trying to understand that, but I asked my aunt again, and she just explained that there's the concept of free will. So sometimes things happen to us, and they were not meant to happen, but they've happened. We all decide what we want to do. I could have decided this morning that I committed to coming to speak, but I don't want to do it anymore. That's my free will. The plan was for me to come, to stand here and speak, and I decided this, no, I don't want to do it. That is my free will, and it has an impact on you guys. So the same thing happens in life, where you have people that decide, and then we have to deal with the consequences of that, because unfortunately the healing is your responsibility. No one's going to do it for you. No one's coming to save you, is what a friend of mine normally said, and it was harsh at the time, but now I understand. You need to take responsibility. It's not nice, I will repeat. It's not easy, but there's benefits to it, long-term benefits. That wasn't my first or last admission. I went back to Akeso, a psychiatric hospital in South Africa, 2022. And so now I went back a second time. The first time it was, I'm fine, I'm good, I am healed. Oh, the word healing. I am healed. They were praying. God answered my prayers. I was still mad at him, but you almost need to sound politically correct when you're with your aunt and your grandma who pray. So I am healed. Inside I am angry that I don't want to be going through this. Why should I go through all of this? I went back March 2022. Now I was doing my final year. Internship, 6 months long, so you need to be there. I did my university in the University of Botswana. So you need to be in Botswana for 6 months, so you're able to graduate. Now Sihle is sick, she must go for a second admission in South Africa. So now it's like graduation is not going to happen. And it feels like everything bad is just happening in your life. I'm already sick, I'm not going to graduate. What will the people say? My classmates, my family, and my granny who's been talking about graduation since first year. What do I say to her? God, where are you? Are you even there? Or do you have favorites? Do you have your people and then there's just us whom you don't love? Okay, went back for my admission. I came out and it stopped working. So all of these things that I knew worked, all of the things I was dependent on, so my family, my aunt, the doctors, my therapist, it stopped working. Year 2022, it's just last year, it stopped working. And it's like, okay, God got me to a place where I fully surrendered, not because I wanted to, but because there was no choice. You're also not dying. That's the reality of it. I would love to die at that point, but I'm still not dying, and I'm in this pain. And all of these things that I know to work are not working. I mean, my first admission was 10 days, the second one was also 10 days, and it didn't work. And I mean, if you're in the psych space or just the mental health, you're able to tell this thing did not work. This expensive thing did not work. It's like, okay, what do we do next? Went back to school. Yeah, so now I had an extra month, the 6 months, so I had to do 7 months because I was sick. There were 12 of us in my class, they left. All Botswana. I'm the only foreigner. I'm an international student. I don't have family here. I just need to do this thing and leave. And I was not able to do this thing and leave. I called my aunt July 2022. I said, Auntie, you probably won't like this, but I can't do it anymore. She said, okay, sissy, what do you need? I said, I want to come home because I will kill myself in this country. I will die. I don't want to be here. It's not working. Nothing's working. Let me just go home. Of course, I went home. I went home end of July 2022. I left my degree and I just had a few days left to complete. All my lecturers were asking me, Sipe, don't. You've pushed. We've seen you push. And it's like, guys, I've been sick. I've tried. I can't do it anymore. I went home. Came back home, actually. And you still had to come to church on Sunday. I mean, you're sick, you're depressed, I get it, but we go to church on Sunday. You'll come back and sleep after church. It's okay. I still came to church. I'd hear all this preaching, these hopeful messages, and I just didn't think that was for me. Again, it was for everyone else but myself. They were still praying, all of them. All of them were praying, and it got to a point where my aunt booked tickets for my graduation in October. I said to her, I am not done. I quit school. I told them to pause this whole thing. I'm going home. What tickets are you buying? What graduation? Unless you have another niece that I don't know of who's graduating, surely it's not me. And she said, Sissy, I have prayed, and I believe God for complete healing. I believe God for you graduating, so you getting your degree. He is faithful. He has been faithful, and he won't stop being faithful now. Sometimes I wish I could just punch her. Just punch some sense into her, because what are you talking about? Like, do you not see the situation? Am I the only person who sees this? Then again, you're the one living with this pain. This is your reality every single day. You are psychotic. My aunt talks of an episode, is what I'll call it, where she says there's rock bottom and then there's rock bottomer, where you keep digging. I think that was the day for her. Mind you, I'd have episodes and I'd go to your medicines just to stabilize you, because imagine you haven't been sleeping for days and they just need to sedate you so you can rest. And they also got to a point where they had tried everything humanly possible. They had tried and said, Mage Kumalo, please take her home. For the doctors to tell you, take her home. And then they ask again that, but where will you take her? Like, we can't keep her here any longer because it's not working. But also, where will you take her? And she would say, I am taking her home. Yeah. And then you have a lot of people speak. So you'll have people ask you, actually not even ask, they suggest. Some told me you have a spiritual calling, you need to go and pasa. Some said, I know a man, this side. He can help you. He's dealt with situations like this. He knows his thing. And in times of desperation like that, it would have been easy, really. Even for me, I would just go. I wouldn't tell anyone where I was going. But the point I'm trying to make is, even though everything was dark and hopeless, I still knew that God could do it. Maybe not for me, but for other people he could do it. So I just then hope that, Lord, count me in. Just please count me in, because I am not dying. I get a call from my school, beginning of August. The deadline, the grad application deadline has passed, so you just know for sure you're not graduating. You know for sure you're not graduating. My HOD calls me, she says, Sipe, how are you, mama? I'm like, I'm fine, ma'am. And she says, yeah, I need you to submit your portfolio, your internship portfolio. And I say to her, what internship portfolio? Because I am done. I quit. What are you talking about? She says, I know you have something. It's just you want a good grade, a perfect score, but submit what you have. I have talked to the faculty administrators, but I've made a plan. You need to graduate. And I said, I'm not getting my hopes high. My Tswana friend had come to visit, so we worked on it. I submitted. Even then, it's, God, you just want to, you're joking around, you're making a fool of me, you want me to get hopeful and then burst that bubble of happiness. I submit, and I never get a response whether I'm graduating or not, because online, the system has closed for application deadlines. Even then, my aunt has booked everything at that point. Your accommodation, your flights, everything is booked because we're going for graduation. It's like, you need to get a dress, start finding a design. I'm like, this woman, okay, I do it. But to cut the long story short, eventually I do graduate. And God says this is only the beginning. This is not the end. This is only the beginning. And you have completely surrendered to my will, because all the things you were dependent on have failed. So you know for sure, you know that it is God, because no human could have done that. I do graduate, and I don't like thinking up. You'd think it was a glorious day. I was so happy and bright. I was sick, anxiety. And not for the day. I don't have an explanation for what was going on. But a week after my graduation, I'm admitted again in South Africa. But I mean, now I'm a graduate, so it's not that bad. I'm admitted again in South Africa, and the doctors are doing tests and scans, your CT scans, your MRIs, the full spectrum, because I have started to seizure. So I will seizure, and then I wake up and I don't know what had happened, but the bed is wet. So it's like, surely it's not what I think it is. It's bad. It's bad. And even then you're thinking, how am I going to work? How am I going to stand in front of my clients and speak? Because I surely haven't earned the right. I also used to self-harm, so I have all these marks on my arm. And some clients would ask, even in therapy during my internship, to say, oh, so you self-harm? And you're thinking, well, I don't know. It is what you think it is. But even then, you just don't think you're qualified to do that work, to speak in front of people. And God is faithful. I'm just here to say that today. I mean, you can forget everything else. God is faithful. I know that through my life, and I've talked about the support. Fufu girl, okay. The support. So I'll just quickly go through this, that as the family, or you could be the family, you could be the friend, really. Maybe this is your child, maybe this is your sister. Just be firm but loving. Do it with love. Just do this, but love me. That's it, the love. Because at that point, this person feels like a burden. They see how expensive this thing is, and it's just easier to die. Be firm but loving. Believe that your loved one will recover. We know when you've given up. Just keep believing. It's probably bad, or it's just there's no hope, but keep believing. So stand in the gap for them. Pray over their lives and just stand firm. Be their safe space. So that days where they'll feel like talking, that days where they won't feel like talking, don't take offense. To say, oh, Namusha, you want to talk? Yes, I'm here, let's talk. Tomorrow I may not want to do the same thing. Just be their safe space and be patient, please. Seek professional help. The funding, it is expensive. It is expensive. That is the reality of it. So if you can, please also help financially. The medication that I was taking monthly it would range from 5,000 to 6,000 every month. Not to talk about the admissions because no. So this is monthly, and you're still seeing a psychologist and a psychiatrist. At the time, consultation is 1.5 for a psychologist, 1.7 for a psychiatrist, and the medical aid has elapsed. But you're sick. You've been sick since January. Now we're in September. It is expensive. If you can, please really fund that. Don't be in denial. So I did talk about this different disorders. Some of you have maybe kids with learning disabilities. It is a disability, or autism, just your neurodevelopmental disorders. It's not a death sentence. It's not their identity. They need help. They need professional help. So please try not. You could also see talk to someone about your struggle to accept that. Yes, don't be judgmental. Be a good listener, even in the silence. Just be there and give hope. You don't then try at least not to wake up and think, yes, it's bad. I think this is the end as well, because the only person you're literally depending on is your caregiver. You draw strength from them, and I acknowledge that it can be tiring, even for you. So seek the additional help, even for yourself. Now, this is to the people living with a mental illness. Mental illness is not your identity. You're not imagining, faking, or exaggerating the illness. It is real. You will not always feel this way. It gets better. I am living proof of that. You're not a burden, but a blessing. Keep holding on. So my lecturer at some point used to say to me, you want to die, postpone it to tomorrow. Do it tomorrow. Do it tomorrow. So keep holding on, and your story is valid. There's no significant trauma that this is real trauma and then this is not. Every story is valid, and God loves you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ponsile, for that introduction. You all look beautiful. You look amazing. Thank you. So I just want to put out a few disclaimers before I start. Once I start, I don't know how to stop. I've learned the pastor's story of we're going to end now we're wrapping up, and then they go on for another half an hour. When you're walking in your purpose, it's very difficult to close. But I'm going to try my best. I did have slides that I had prepared, but I do not want to use them because they're going to throw me. I want to speak from my heart. I want to say thank you to Sihle for being vulnerable, just sharing. I cry because I deal with this stuff daily. You've set the tone for me. Thank you very much. I'm very proud of you and the journey that you've shared today. I know, just from what you're saying, it has not been easy. Well done. Keep fighting your good fight. I want to highlight just some of the stuff that Sihle said before I continue as a continuation. She's really set the tone for me. She has made it very clear that you do not self-diagnose. Diagnosing is not a checklist. You don't go to the checklist and say, I'm sad, I'm suicidal, I'm not eating, I'm depressed. Because depression, psychosis, trauma and stress-related disorders will present in different ways. We don't all present the same way. And that is why it's important that you see a mental health professional to get a diagnosis. I also want to say, while we're sitting here, please don't think of your husband and your uncle and your mother and your brother. Think of yourself, because you can't change them. You can only change yourself. So don't be saying, that one must be psychotic because it thinks it's this and this and this. No. Focus on yourself. You know, in church when the pastor's preaching and you're doing this to your partner, your husband, no. Please focus on you. And the reason I'm saying that is you don't have power to change anyone besides yourself. So you're wasting your time thinking about that other person, unless you're going to go lovingly and say, I heard this today, and maybe this is something you need to look into for helping them, okay? The other thing I want to say to you is, as a psychologist, I'm very biased, obviously, right? So the same way that you see a dentist, I hope, at least once a year, I feel every single person at some stage in their life needs to see a psychologist. Life is hard. Like Julia said earlier, this, especially for women, this week has been terrible for us. Seeing the highlights, seeing what's been happening to women, it's terrible. And I'm not only saying things are happening to women, but we're women here today, and that's why I'm talking in that regard. I want to also say, like Sihle mentioned, that you may find that this talk triggered negative events. Negative thoughts, negative experiences. I don't know if you know, but you can be traumatized by what you hear, what you see, and what you experience. So we may not have been there with what happened with those ladies that have been in the newspaper, but you may be experiencing trauma symptoms. Please don't take it lightly. You don't want to be dysfunctional. You don't want to be maladaptive. Be cognizant of that over the next few days of how has this impacted me. So personally, I don't read the newspaper. I try and stay off social media. I don't like negativity because the reality is your environment, what you feed yourself, will impact you more even than your Christianity. And that's not me downplaying God. That's me saying, if you're in an environment that's constantly negative, no matter how spiritual you are, that's going to change you. The Bible says, as a man thinketh, so he is. So if I'm in that environment all the time, that's what's feeding me. Hence why I don't read the newspaper, because there's never a situation where they're telling me about somebody's healing. There's very rarely a time where they're telling me about good stuff. So if I need to know what's going on in the world, God will make a way for me to find out. Until then, all I need to do is pray. And then finally, I want to say, let's not pathologize symptoms. And Sihle did highlight this about sadness of the dress that you may have ironed and got burnt for Sunday morning. It's not that sadness. It's a pervasive, overwhelming, debilitating, non-ending sadness. And some of you may have experienced that, but that does not mean you're depressed. It means you were sad. Because there are a cluster of symptoms, there is a time frame, there are different criteria, and it has to affect your functioning in different areas before you make a diagnosis. So I'm really highlighting this because I really don't want people leaving here thinking, oh no, I must be psychotic. Oh no, I have a delusion. Yes, a delusion is a belief. It's a fixed belief. But again, if I believe I can bring the dead back to life, am I being delusional? No, I'm a Christian. I've got Jesus in me. I've got the Holy Spirit in me. I can bring people back to life. But if I said that out in a certain environment, they may consider me being sick. So we've got to be very careful that we're not pathologizing stuff that's not illness, because there has to be a cluster. So the same way, if you get a lump, you don't straight away think it's cancer. There's got to be other symptoms that are linked to it. Does this make sense? So just with regards to what Sihle planted, I just wanted to highlight that. And then the final thing I want to say is, at this point, I could get off the stage because Sihle gave you the answer, it's God. I could literally put the mic down and say, that's it, God, bye. But because I'm not that person and I like talking, I'm going to stand and I'm going to talk. Okay, so thanks again, Sihle, for setting the tone for me. So I'm going to talk about what mental health is. I'm going to talk about the causes of mental health problems, the journey of healing, and then I'm going to talk about what we call transpersonal mental health, which is spiritual psychology. And I'm so grateful for this. All my life as a psychologist, I've known something was missing in my work, because the medical framework is biology, social, and they don't look at the spiritual. But there's no way I can live my life and do my work without God. And so, because I am who I am and I cannot conform at times, I decided, well, I'm just going to bring the spiritual in without the scientific background, without a theory, and do my thing. And because God is God, last year He brought a course to me to almost give credibility to the spiritual work that I do. And that is what we call transpersonal mental health, which we'll get to. So Sihle did explain what mental health is. I wanted to say that it is not the absence of mental illness. Mental health does not mean you are healthy because there's no mental illness. There could be 20% of you sitting here with poor mental health. You do not need a diagnosis in order to have poor mental health. The same way I can have cancer but be healthy because I'm in remission. Are we together? We need to look at mental health the same way we do as physical health. We also need to stop separating mental health from physical health because you can't. Unfortunately, the world has, hence the stigma. Sihle spoke about having a tummy ache. Where did she go? To a doctor. How many doctors? How many hospitals? To a psychological. Because I believe 75% to 90% of your medical conditions are psychological. We've all had backache from stress, headache from stress. Those are the minor ones. But I know forgiveness can cause cancer. Unforgiveness, will cause cancer because that's what happened to my mother. And people will think I'm crazy when I say that. But the reality is when she went to the doctor and the doctor said to her, have you ever had a trauma? There's no cancer in my family on my mother's side. My father was murdered in an armed robbery with my mother. She had unforgiveness. And in retrospect, when we checked her diaries and her prayers and everything, she cried out to God to give her a forgiving heart. It sealed the deal for me. Unforgiveness triggered my mother's cancer. Or the trauma triggered it and the unforgiveness maintained it. But there was something there with the emotions and psychology. So we've got to keep that in mind. We cannot separate them. World Health Organization defines mental health. And because I told you I'm not a conformist, I'm going to challenge it. As a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her abilities, they can cope with everyday normal stresses. What is normal? Who defines what's normal? Number one. They can work productively and fruitfully. Who decides what's productive and fruitful? What's productive for you may not be productive for me. And can make a commitment to his or her community. There's nothing in there about my God. Because I can be mentally ill. Or I can have poor mental health, but my God can keep me going with my illness. So for me, fair enough, we're in the world. Okay, I'll take it, but I'm not going to live with that. Like physical health, it's on a continuum. Like I said, you can have a mental illness, but you can be mentally healthy. Right? So it's on a continuum. I can be, like Sihle said, I can be depressed over here, but functional, or I can be depressed where I don't want to open the curtains, or I don't want to eat, I don't want to wash. I don't want to live my life. I want to die. Right? So we've got to keep that in mind. And it definitely does include your thoughts, feelings, and behavior. It is important if you have experienced some of those symptoms that Sihle mentioned, and that is not an exhausted list. You know the size of our Bibles? We have a thing called the DSM. It's called a Diagnostic Statistical Manual. Ew, that makes me sound like a real clever person, right? But there's this book that is full of diagnosis, which for me says that it's not an easy thing to diagnose. It's not a tick the box, right? So we've got to recognize that there's a lot that could be going on. If you have experienced what Sihle has shared from her symptoms, herself, from what the books say, don't hesitate to go and read up. Go and get help. Go to your doctor if you don't want to go to a psychologist because you're shy, you're scared, or you're embarrassed. Your doctor can help you as well. But then he's going to send you to someone like me, so you'll be wasting your consultation. Right? But educate yourself in this. So you can have mental illness and be in good mental health. We need to acknowledge that our mental well-being, and this is my challenge to the World Health Organization, include different dimensions of our lives: spiritual, financial, psychological, social, environmental, and intellectual. If I am in an environment where constantly I'm hearing this, there's no way I can be in good mental health. Daily, that's what I'm hearing. Does this make sense? I have people who I speak to where they're in buildings where construction is still happening at work. They are struggling. But because people don't understand mental health, including environment and everything around you, it's disregarded, right? So mental health includes all those different areas of our lives. I want to talk about some of the things, and again, this is not an exhausted list, of what will cause mental health problems or mental illness. When I say mental illness, please keep in mind I'm meaning a full-on diagnosis. And people who know me as a therapist, I'm not for diagnosis because I don't believe that a label can define me unless it comes from God. Right? So because I work in the world and I've got to abide by some of the rules, I'll speak diagnosis, but it's not my heart. And I also don't believe in putting a diagnosis on people because that becomes self-fulfilling prophecy. If I tell you enough times you're depressed, I promise you're going to be depressed. Not because it's magic or witchcraft, because it's a fact. Right? So if I keep saying, oh, because you're depressed, A, B, C, D, you're going to have to live up to that. Does this make sense? So I will use diagnosis to inform my treatment with my clients, but I'm not going to say to you, you have. I will deal with your symptoms because all of us deal with different symptoms, and you don't need to have a mental diagnosis or disorder or an illness to come and see me or to see somebody for help. So mental health problems have a wide range of causes. It's likely that for many people, it could be a complicated combination of different factors. For example, it could be child abuse, trauma, or neglect. It could be social isolation or loneliness. I think some people who, during COVID, who lived on their own may have experienced this. I didn't live on my own, I lived with my husband, but I refused to go out because I was so scared. I was petrified. And you'll hear later when I share a bit of my own story where my fear came from. That after 6 weeks of not being out of the house, because I went and I worked online, I was so silly though. I would send my husband out to do the grocery shopping and feel that I'm safe, even though he's coming back to me. As long as I was in my home, in retrospect, I realized my mental health was impacted because that was not a healthy thought. That was not rational. Thinking I'm safe, even though I'm sending him out every day. Please go and buy me this. Please go and do that. But no, I don't have COVID. However, because I was isolated and I'm a people's person, it started impacting my mental health. I would sit on my couch in the corner with my coloring book, with crossword books, and I was quiet. And the one day my husband said to me, on Saturday morning, you better get up and get showered. I'm taking you out. I can't deal with this. And I said to him, no, I'm going to die out there. Like, I have an underlying condition. I've got a thyroid problem, and I'm obese. I'm going to die. Like, COVID is not for people like me, right? And that was my dead honest truth. But he wasn't having it because he could see that I was starting to fade. And as God would have it, I went to Pick n Pay. I got COVID instantly. My throat was sore, my nose felt like I didn't have COVID. It was in my head. But what I'm trying to say to you is isolation, loneliness, all that stuff could lead to mental health problems, right? Experiencing discrimination and stigma, racism, stigma against people with mental health, stigma against people with certain medical conditions, all the isms, which as Christians we really shouldn't be operating in. We should be loving. But that can bring about mental health issues. Social disadvantage, poverty, debt, bereavement, losing someone close to you, and grief. Losing a dog. I may not understand the pain of somebody losing a dog, but I definitely had a friend who did that thought I was very insensitive because I was like, it's just a dog. But then she told me dogs are going to heaven, and I'm asking God, please help me to love these things, but they're there. But losing your job, losing a limb, having to relocate when you're not ready, those things bring on grief, and they can affect your mental health. Don't play them down. Severe or long-term stress, having a long-term physical health condition, pain, physical pain that you can't deal with, will require sometimes psychological intervention. Homelessness, poor housing, and these are ones that you can say, yeah, no, I can understand that. But imagine if you are continuously in an environment where there is strife. So you are not part of the strife, but you're exposed to that strife daily. That can bring about mental health problems. Domestic violence, bullying, abuse as an adult, drug or alcohol misuse, being a long-term carer for someone. You're doing a noble, healthy, loving thing, but it can impact your mental health if you are not looking after yourself. Does this make sense? And Seatley spoke about, hey, you know when they've given up. She said that a few times. And I don't necessarily feel it's always giving up. It may be that I have nothing left. I'm at my capacity. I'm done. And I know that having looked after my mum. nursing her through cancer till she passed away. I was done. Done. You know, just standing up becomes hard. When you hear her move in the bed and you think, oh, come on, I thought she was sleeping. Please don't wake up now. Like, sleep some more. This is tiring. And that was me, my sister, and a nurse. But it affected mental health. Does this make sense? So can you see that it's not just the everyday things we think, like death or abuse or armed robbery, the big things, or what's considered big. It can be small, minor things as well. I also want to just highlight that, please, just be sensitive to the fact that you breaking your toe may not be traumatic, but for your neighbor, it may be. Mental health is relative. Does this make sense? So people will say, they may say to Sihle after sharing her story, oh my gosh, that's not as bad as what I've been through. You can't say that. You don't know her internal life. So be sensitive to the fact when somebody says they're feeling depressed and you're thinking, depressed, you've got money, you've got a house, you've got a job, you've got a partner, you've got children, what you depressed for? That's not your position. You have no idea. She shared that there could be biological reasons for depression. I have a thyroid problem that impacts my hormones. Within seconds, I can get depressed. Depressed when I want to die. And it's because my hormones are out. But because people are not aware or educated around these things, we judge. And you heard one of the things Sihle spoke about that said, be supportive, no judgment. And I really want to encourage that. I mean, and I'm going to say this. As Christians, we are sometimes the worst. And as women towards other women, we are sometimes the worst. It's enough, ladies. You're supposed to be your neighbor's best supporter. Does that make sense? But we judge. Yes, the Lord says judge the fruits. He does not say judge the person. Does that make sense? But that's what we do. We judge the person. Somebody walks in, they're miserable, they're not talking, you're like, look at that one, what's her problem? She's so unfriendly. You have no idea what she's going through. You know, I often say, even as I'm standing here now and talking, there are people there, right here, judging me. But you know what? I don't care. You carry on. That's a you problem. You're going to have mental health issues worrying about me. I'm good. Does this make sense, ladies? Right? And for those that are offended by what I'm saying, sorry. Not sorry. People have heard me talk before. Take it to Jesus or your therapist. So I also want to go on to say that there are physical causes that can lead to mental health issues. Head injuries, neurological conditions such as epilepsy can impact your behavior and your mood. So it's important to rule out physical illness as well. So for me, for instance, if a client comes to me, a teenager, and they're moody and their behavior is aggressive, first things first, to the doctor, go and check for drugs, go and check your thyroid. Because I can do therapy till I'm blue in the face. If you've got a medical condition, it's not working. Does this make sense? You need medication. If, for instance, somebody's struggling with chronic pain, yes, it could be psychological, but I'm first sending you to the doctor to rule out a medical condition. Does this make sense, people? Can you see the link between physical health and psychological health? And unfortunately, the world doesn't see it that way. They see psychological health and they see physical health. I don't know how or why or where the sense comes in to separate the two, because my head is not sitting on the side of me. It's connected to me. But somewhere, someone wants to separate the two, right? But I'll leave you with that one to think about and ponder for yourself. So, like Sihle has shared her story, and you can see she had episodes where she wasn't well. I want to share a little bit of my story to share how healing is possible and how I went about my healing. Again, the journey is different for everybody. So somebody may sit here with flu, and Benylin flu will work. Somebody else may need something else. Somebody may be sitting here with pain, and Panado will work. Somebody else may need Mibulin, something stronger or different. So please, I'm trying to highlight the subjectivity and personal nature of your mental health, of your being. I, like Sihle, am a witness to the grace of God and that healing is possible. It's hard work. It sometimes seems unfair. It seems like, why do I have to do this? But you've got to be intentional, consistent, and take personal responsibility. Even as a therapist or psychologist, you can come sit in my office. You sit with me for 50 minutes to an hour and a half once a week. I'm telling you now, what we talk about is maybe 20% of your healing. The hard work happens outside of my office, where I am not with you, where I cannot do it for you. And even if life has happened to you, like it did to me with my father being murdered and my mother passing from cancer, I am responsible for my healing. It was unfair. Somebody had free will and decided they're going to take life. I can sit there in the pit forever, but their lives continue. So I've got to stand up. I've got to rise up and do what I need to do, which I did. Hence why I can stand here today and share. Do I share easily? Am I unemotional about this? No, it's difficult. It's hard. It takes me back, especially being in this church where I buried both my parents. So, but I'm going to do it because that's the purpose God has on my life. He turned what the devil intended for harm for good. Because I can share here and I can talk and I can do my therapy work from experience. When people say they've lost a parent, I understand the pain. I don't know their pain, but I understand its pain. When somebody's nursed a loved one to death over years, I know that pain. When somebody's had marital problems, I know that pain. When somebody's had financial problems, I know that pain. When somebody can't have children, I know that pain. When somebody's family member's getting divorced, I know those pains. And people may be thinking, yo, Celeste, gosh, you know a lot of pain. I do. But God knew I needed this. So when I speak to Pastor Bonsile one day in struggle, or I speak to Auntie Shirley, I'm not speaking only from the book. I'm speaking from my heart. I know what I'm talking about. I know what this means. I get a sense of what you're feeling. It's not a checklist in the book anymore. Does this make sense, ladies? I could have chosen, like I say, to stay in the pit, but I didn't. And you may be asking how. I decided that I'm going to be responsible for my pain, my hurt, betrayal, the struggle of the world, and what I'm experiencing, because I'm responsible for it and nobody else can do it. Nobody can do it for you. And yes, Jesus is a being and he can, but you got to plug in. He's going to do this. You can choose to walk away or you can choose to hold on. For 6 months after the armed robbery, after I had a gun to my head and a knife to my neck, I decided to do that. I walked away. I decided smoking, drinking and driving, not washing, disrespecting my mom, doing me was the best way. But it didn't work. Luckily, I had my mother who loved me unconditionally. I had support. I refused therapy. I was a fully qualified clinical psychologist at the time. I was doing therapy with people. Gosh, if any of you are here or if anywhere you are and you hear this, I'm so sorry. I will give you your money back. But at the time, I thought I was well. And what I'm trying to say is, even as a therapist with the knowledge, I didn't realize how sick I was. When you're brushing your teeth and you're seeing blood in the sink, straight away you're going to tell me it's a hallucination. No, it wasn't. It was a flashback because I saw the pool of blood where my father was shot. But I brushed my teeth and I'm saying to my mother, hey, Mom, you got somebody losing their mind here. Come see the blood. She's like, Celeste, there's no blood. I'm like, well, one of us are not okay. Because I can see blood and you can't. So who's the one that's not okay here? Pick up the phone a friend who's a psychologist. Tracy, this is what's going on. Lest it's a flashback. It's not hallucination. What I'm trying to say is sometimes we are blind spotted. We are deceived because that's what Satan wants to do. Am I making sense? So here are just some pointers that I'm going to go through today to your journey of healing and how we overcome and remember, when I say overcome, please note, it does not mean it will go away. It sometimes means I will be above it. Does this make sense? That I will live with this, but I will live well. I will live adaptively. I will be logical. I will be functional. I'll be successful. I'll be productive. Okay? So when I say overcome or when I say healing, I really personally feel the only healing we ever have is when we meet Jesus. Because today I will have flu, I'm healed. Tomorrow I break my leg, I'm healed. But there's always something. My complete healing comes when I meet my Savior. Right? So I'm going to look at radical acceptance, eating well, sleeping well, and physical exercise, social support and hobbies, changing your feelings through changing your thoughts, forgiveness, being grateful, boundaries, and then the big one, spirituality. I'm saying this to you now. I have credibility to speak on this. I ran it by Pastor Bonsile about the spiritual stuff. So you may find yourself thinking, what is she talking about? Please go back to Pastor Bonsile. I'm the psychologist, I'm not the pastor. So when I say radical acceptance, what do I mean? Sitle mentioned do not be in denial. When you see your relationships are not working, when you see you're not able to achieve your goals, when you see things are just not panning out, please do me a favor and stop pointing fingers. Because that's what we do. No, it's government. No, it's my boss. No, I'm in a toxic place. No. No, you can't change those things. Go and pray about those, but what are you going to do? Accept that this is where I am. I had to accept your father's been murdered. Your life will never be the same. You are living in paralyzing fear of your life, but you're dysfunctional. Once I was able to accept that, I was able then to start walking in healing. But as long as I thought my drinking and driving, my disrespecting of my mom, me not washing, my poor mother gosh, how embarrassing. She'd be like, Celeste, you're starting to smell. I was like, who cares? What must I smell nice for? Because somebody's going to come and kill me. So what am I smell nice for? Celeste, it's just hygienic. Hygienic for who? She says, cleanliness is next to godliness. I said, who's God? Where was he? Satan was around. Where was God? And that's how I was. And eventually I realized this is not functional. She used to even beg me, please just go next door and wash your hair. They don't need to blow dry it. Just wash it. Mommy, don't waste your money. It's fine. When I die, I'm going to rot. Let me start the process now. Right? That is how unwell I was, people. I do wash now. I wash my hair. I try and smell nice, and I try and be functional because I'm healing. Right. Thank you. So you take personal responsibility, which nobody else can do for you, right? Take note when your friends and your family are saying, you know what, you're really aggro. You're really irritable. You're not looking well. Don't be offended. Okay, there are those that don't say it in love, so be discerning. But those that you know do love you, don't fight them. They're only sharing this because they want you to be better. And that's the only way you're going to take responsibility, right? And you're going to accept your truth. You then need to consider that if I don't accept this truth, what next? Where to from here if I'm not going to accept that this is my truth? Am I going to live a life of denial forever? I don't know what that will look like. But if I continue down the path I was going down, I don't believe I'd be here today. I would have either ended up being murdered because I was such an aggro person. I had a panga that if people irritated me, I would pull it out. I don't even know how to use a panga. That thing is flat. It's not like you just do this. You got to get the angle right. So here I am maybe trying to attack somebody. What would have happened if they got it out of my hand? And I still have road rage. I'm still on a journey. So if I've shouted at you on the road, if I've hooted at you, if my hands are flying, be gracious. Pray for me. Because Julia knows the story. She can share with you later about road rage and Celeste. But what I'm trying to say is, people, we are all a work in progress, right? And our mental health is the thing that we need to be working on most of the time. So accept where you are with your mental health and do something about it, right? Am I gracious and empathetic to people who are struggling? Yes, to a point. Once I see you're enjoying being in your mess, I'm either going to walk away and leave you to Jesus, or I'm going to give you some tough love. Because I'm not going to enable the mental health deterioration. So acceptance is the first thing before you can do anything in life, right? And I'm talking mental health, but I'm talking whether you don't have a job. So you're going to sit at home, Jesus, you know my struggle. Please get a job for me. Are you applying? Where's your action? Lord, I'm in debt, but you keep spending money. Let's not be like I was, silly, sending my husband out to buy stuff thinking I'm not going to get COVID from him. Okay? So let's be acceptant. It's tough, but acceptance is truly your precursor to healing. Then I'm going to talk very quickly about you need to eat well, you need to sleep well, and you need to exercise. Oh, another disclaimer. Please do what I say. Thank you, not what I do. I'm on a journey. So when you see me at Spur eating a burger with a milkshake and having a waffle, don't ask me about eating well. That's not your business. That is Celeste's problem with Jesus. Right? So please do what I say, not what I do. We all at different levels of our journey. Okay. I want to just go, I just want to give you two references actually in a reference in the Bible. 1 Kings 19, 4-8 about Elijah. Elijah was just made to eat and sleep. For me, that just shows how important it is. Sihle mentioned how she wasn't sleeping for a while and ended up having to go to be stabilized at a hospital because those are core. Eating and sleeping are physical. They're not psychological. They will affect your psychology, and your psychology will affect it. But the healing starts with eating and sleeping. If you are not eating well or sleeping well, there's very little I can do up here because you're not focused. So make sure you get out of bed and dress every day and open the curtains. Even if you are not doing anything else. It may sound simple, but when you're struggling, that is hard. We find comfort in our darkness. It sounds quite perverse, but we do. And I understand what Sihle is saying about not wanting to open the curtains. It's like, I don't want to do life. Like, I want to hide and stay in my safe space. Any one of you can ask my husband where my best place is, my bed. He says I love my bed better than him. And maybe to a degree I do, but it is my safe space. So where would I want to be when I'm struggling? In bed. But I've got to get up and go to work. I've got to get up and be a wife, be an aunt, be a citizen of the country. But sleep is important when it is your normal. And I say your normal because I need 9 hours of sleep, and people look at me and they're like, 9? Yes, 9. I know some of the older generation need like 4. Well, may God give you grace to carry on your day, because I could not function. But you know your norm for what you need to function well. Make sure you're getting that sleep. Make sure you're eating well. When I say well, I don't mean filling your belly. I mean filling your belly with nutritional food. Your body and your brain needs fuel. It doesn't. So I have somebody here in the audience who gives me my nutritional food because I hate cooking. And so find a way to have nutritional food, even if you're the one that's not making it, right? Because it's important. And then the third thing physically is exercise. So for a long time in my talks, I'd say, don't do what I do what I say about exercise, because I don't like perspiring. I don't like jumping around. God changed my heart, and now I'm in the gym. But can I tell you why? Because when I'm 60, I want to be walking upright. Thank you. I want to be like the lady over there. I spend my day sitting on my bottom. That is my job, 8 hours on my bottom. If I do a step count in a day, and I haven't been to gym, I only walk 100 steps. That is ridiculous. So if I want to be healthy, and remember, not physically healthy, but mentally healthy as well, I have to get exercise in. And please, I'm not saying join the gym. I joined the gym because it's structured, I've paid for it, I'm forced to go because I'm not wasting my money. But if somebody said, let's walk, I'm not going to do that. For what? It's hot, the sun's burning my face. There's nothing. So I have found what works for me. Do I enjoy the gym? No. Do I like going? No. But do I need to do it for my health? Yes. The same way you need to. You find your mechanism. For the married woman, your husbands will be satisfied. It's exercise, girls. Use it. And you probably have a better marriage because it's the glue to your marriage, right? There's no excuse. It can be gardening. It can be dancing. For those that used to be in the clubs when they were younger, put on your holy music and dance the way you dance in the clubs, right? There are very, 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 very many ways that you can get exercise in. Just get your heart beating. Physically and medically, you're giving off happy hormones, the hormones that make you happy. It is not in vain. Right, so eat well, sleep well, and exercise. Social support. Please be wise in your social support. If you think you're going to sit in a club or a bar with your drunk friend, and I'm not judging people, and tell your stories, best know that's not social support. You're going to be exposed. Be wise about who you share your stories with. Be wise about who you share your truth with, right? Personally, if somebody has serious financial problems and they're not able to get out of it, I'm not going to you for advice. I'm not sharing my problem with you because we're going to drown together. Does that make sense? And so be wise. So here, Sihle and I are sharing our stories about mental health. we are still functioning. We are wise. Does this make sense? It's the person that has it's the Celeste of 6 months after her father passed away that you're not supposed to trust as social support, because she's going to say, come, let's go drink. Right? She's not going to say, you know what, Celeste, maybe you need to go for prayer. Or maybe you need to go and see a psychologist. So be very careful who you talk to. God has given each believer a combination of opportunities and gifts that are perfectly suited for your situation. Reach out and find that person. Ask Jesus, who do I talk to about this? And he may not always use the same person, and he may not use all the same mechanisms. Like Sitle said, I don't remember what year, the psychiatrist, the psychologist, nothing, the medication, nothing was working anymore. Because God doesn't necessarily use the same thing all the time. Talking about your stressful situation with a supportive person can be an effective way to manage your stress. And seeking external support instead of self-isolating, which we know can make mental health worse, will reduce your negative effects of a difficult situation. I want to add that if you really struggle to find someone to talk to, journal. Pick up your book and journal. It seems like a schlep. You may think, what must I write? Where do I start? Just write. Even if you're writing, I want to journal, I don't know what to write. I want to journal, I don't know what. I promise you eventually something will come out. When you journal, you order your thoughts, you get creative, you realize that things are not as bad as what they seem when they're in your head, and it's a literal way of getting things out. It says is it Habakkuk? Write the vision down. Yeah. I take that further, write it all down. People will say to me, yeah, but what if somebody finds it, writes it and burn it? Just get it out. Does that make sense? And eventually you'll probably find you're finding it easier to talk because you've been writing all these things, you've acknowledged your truth, and you reach a point of acceptance. Now I need to deal. Now this is where it gets hard. The battle is here, people. The battle is here, psychologically and spiritually. If we can't get this in order, your mental health will never be in order. Mine's not always in order. Like, don't laugh. Yours is also not always in order. We all will go through different seasons and be at different levels. Does that make sense? And it's important that we are constantly working on our mental health. Don't only work when you hit a problem. Because can I tell you a secret? If you're not in a problem, you're coming out of a problem, or you're going into another problem. And that's the reality. And that's not me. The Bible says there's going to be trials and tribulations. Take it up with Jesus. I'm not the one saying so. I'm just sharing truth with you. So why not equip yourselves? Jesus says we must keep the word on our lips day and night. For what? Why, if I don't have a problem? Because he knows. He knew. He can see. He's given us the tools. You know, I'm going to put you on a secret, and I'm standing on the pulpit, but I will deny this outside if you tell anyone I said this. I'm telling you now. The Bible is the main psychology book. All the answers are in there. Freud and Maslow and Gary Chapman and whoever else, they have just used it in their own language and added a little bit of their own stuff. I don't want their stuff. I want Jesus' stuff. He says, take your thoughts captive. Think on things that are pure, noble, and good. Stop ruminating. Oh my gosh, that guy put the gun to my head. He's going to come back for me. He's going to kill me. He's going to kill my mom. That's not helping me. And there's no truth to it. Does this make sense? You need to consider what you're thinking about, because this is where your life is going to go. If I spend time with you, an hour max, I'll tell you where you'll be in 5 years. Not because I'm a prophet, but because it's evident by what you say. The world was created through speech. You create your life through speech. You will speak what's in your head. Am I making sense? Take your thoughts captive. Think about what you're thinking about. We are the only creatures that can think about what we are thinking about. You will catch a thought. Tonight you're miserable, and you're thinking, why am I so miserable? Go back in your day. Hey, I saw that headline. Even though you didn't focus on it, it went in your head. You are not thinking about what you're thinking about. You're just running the race with whatever thought comes into your head. You have a choice what you think. And people will say to me, no, I don't. No, yes, you do. And you'll say, how? I do not deny that negative thoughts come, because Satan will plant them. The world will plant them. But you choose to run with it or to challenge it. It's not about stopping the thought. I don't believe we can necessarily just stop a thought. You stop and you replace. You replace with a healthier thought. So, with my situation, after my father was murdered, I lived with fear for 7 years. Paralyzing, intense fear. If my husband wasn't at home at 5 o'clock, I would not go into the house. I would go to a neighbor and ask him, can I just park in your yard? You don't even need to give me a drink. I just need to feel safe. I had cameras in my house. I had dogs. I had every form of earthly security to try and make myself feel better, even though it was a lie from the pit of hell and wasted my money. But anyway, I had all of those things because I was so fearful. But why was I fearful? Because I kept saying to myself, Swaziland's not safe. Somebody's going to come for me. My dad was murdered. That's the evidence that this place is not safe. There was a break-in next door. I am not safe. I'm not safe. So obviously I lived that way. Until after 7 years, and because God's a God that He is, He left me for 7 years to be silly because I never ever asked Him for help in that area. I thought I had it in control. He delivered me in church New Year's Eve at 7 years, and we know 7 means completion. But the devil's a liar. I got home after church. They'd broken into my house. But I had made a choice. And this time around, I was not going to ruminate. I was going to take my thoughts captive. I walked around, and people would have thought that there's something wrong with me. Wherever I was, I'd be saying, I undeniably, irrevocably, totally refuse to be afraid. I do not have a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. I do not walk on my own. God will never leave me nor forsake me. I am engrafted in the palm of His hand, and that's what I started saying. And today I'm free. Today there's times I'm like, I wish this guy could just maybe go away for the evening, just so I can have some time. I don't need him to be there anymore. I want him there. But does that make sense, people? That fear was crippling my marriage because my husband felt like a babysitter. Friends would invite me out in the evenings. There was no way I was driving at night. That's not safe. But until I took responsibility after God delivered me, because He's so gracious, I decided this time round, you're not going to control my thoughts, Satan. I'm in control. So you need to take your thoughts captive. Colossians 3 says, set your mind on things that are above, not on things that are on the earth. We are called to set our minds, to choose where we place our focus. 1 Corinthians says, we have the mind of Christ. That, coupled with the power of the Holy Spirit, allows us the ability to think the things God would have us think. And I am not saying to you that things will still not happen to you. They will. Because there's another person not thinking the same way you're thinking. So yes, things will happen. But we're talking about what you can do, what you can control, where you can make a change. Many people ruin their health and their lives by taking on the poison of bitterness, resentment, and unforgiveness. And they live there. You see it in their face. You see it in their body. You see it in their life. They are unhappy, miserable, broken, hurt souls. And I'm sympathetic to a point. Because you've got to choose to be healthy. You've got to choose. So please do yourself a favor. Pick and choose your thoughts. You know the same way you pick and choose your outfit? Pick and choose your thoughts. You'll actually be healthier if you pick and choose your thoughts because you don't have to think too much about the outfit because it'll be very clear cut that I don't wear these things, I wear this because it starts here. I want to go on and talk a little bit about forgiveness. And this is one of the things I will include, and I think in every single talk I give. And people may be thinking, why? Because if Jesus died on the cross to forgive me, then it must be important. And it must be important holistically. Financially, socially, environmentally, physically, holistically. So it will always be part of my talk. The problem is, can I say this? I do not downplay or dismiss people's trauma, your grief, abuse, hurt, pain. I'm not dismissing that. But I'm not sitting there with you. I need to pull you out. And one of those things is forgiveness. It is not about the perpetrator. It's not about the offender. It is about you finding your freedom and letting go. For those 7 years, the reason I struggled was because I could not, and I still haven't, totally forgiven the man who shot my father. So I constantly had him here. He had a remote control to my life. When I thought of him, fear rose. When I thought about driving at night, fear rose. He was in prison, and he controlled me because I didn't forgive. I was struggling to forgive. At the beginning, I wished every bad thing on his family, his children. It was terrible. I'd wish that they'd get slits and vinegar was poured into it. I wish that their nails were pulled off with the pliers. That's where I was at because of my thoughts. Today, because I chose to work on a journey of forgiveness, I sometimes wonder if he's warm in prison. I sometimes wonder, is the food working for him? I'm not at a point where I want to go and speak to him. I'm not going to lie to you. I have not totally forgiven him, but I'm getting there. Forgiveness is a two-pronged fork, people. A decision and a process. And people will say, you can't make people forgive until they're ready. I hear that, but you can make a decision. You don't need to be ready. That then makes you ready because you've decided. Does this make sense? And I have found so much freedom in getting to the point where I've forgiven. This guy is coming out of prison in about 10 years. I count those years. He knows what I look like. He knows I pointed him out in the court. Am I safe? I don't know. But am I going to think about that? No ways. I may die in the next before he comes out. And now I'd have spent my life worrying about this man that may be coming for me. Also, because I'm forgiving him, I know God will bless my heart. I know that he'll bless me in a way that I am safe. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so that is why it's so important to forgive. The other thing I want to say to you, and you've probably heard this in church, I'm assuming most of us, if you schooled in Swaziland, all of us have said, Our Father who art in heaven. Forgive us our sins as... Right, you've given God authority not to forgive you as soon as you've said that. Because that's what you're saying. Lord, forgive me like I forgive. So if you don't forgive, that's the same measure is going to be used on you. I want freedom and I want to walk in obedience with the Lord. So I don't care what you've done to me. I will forgive. Forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. Reconciliation is hopefully the end outcome because that's what Jesus wants. But I cannot reconcile with somebody who's hurt me and has not changed because I'm just going to get hurt again. That for me is not wisdom. And so we've got to be wise again about who we reconcile with. If I've been with an abuser and that person's still abusive, I don't think it's wise to reconcile. God's given me a level of wisdom. So I've forgiven you. I've released you to Jesus. I'm praying for you, but I don't need to be in your space. Does this make sense, people? Remember, we reap what we sow, which I think also then pushes with the forgiveness thing. If you're not merciful, best you know there's going to be so much mercy to you too. If I sow negative thoughts, I'm going to reap those thoughts. If I sow negatively in my relationships, I mustn't be surprised tomorrow when I reap that. And remember, God is not a linear God. So if I'm fighting with Pastor Bonsile, and I am not being honoring to Pastor Bonsile as a spiritual leader, best I know I'm going to deal with that somewhere. It may not be through Pastor Bonsile, because God's not linear. It could be from this lovely lady sitting over here that treats me badly later, and I'm like, she doesn't honor me. Well, yes, you're right. You don't honor your pastor. Does this make sense? I'm not going to forgive Mage Lungile, but I expect Mage Mahluza to forgive me for being disrespectful. No, you planted a seed already. It's coming back this side. Am I making sense, people? But what we do is we look at where the issue is, and we think, oh, no, I'm clear here, so it's fine. But you're not clear here. God's not a linear God. Does that make sense? So do yourself a favor. Hey, I'm giving your stuff for free here. Yo. Do yourself a favor and forgive. There are more benefits of forgiveness. Separate from just your mental health, your fellowship with God changes. You're more free. You're more liberated just within yourself. You're more confident. You're not carrying a burden. So I want to really encourage you to forgive. There's various research, scientific research. So if you're not a Christian, please also forgive, separate from the Our Father story. Research shows scientifically, like I said with my mum, that if you don't forgive, it's going to impact your health. You're setting yourself up for failure. 61% of cancer patients have forgiveness issues. 61%. And then we want to separate physical health, mental health. That doesn't make sense to me. Suppressed anger. People who often get angry for any reason have issues associated with unforgiveness. Low self-esteem, lack of self-love stems from not forgiving yourself or from self-acceptance. Bitterness, which is a result of unforgiveness, will increase your risk of depression. Constant worrying increases the risk of sleep deprivation, anxiety, increased blood pressure, heart disease, and various other problems. Constant stress about things that you haven't forgiven. Can you see the importance of that? Can you see the importance of why Jesus went to the cross before we even sinned? to forgive us because he knew this would impact us significantly. I want to go on. How much time have I got? Oh my gosh, well, 10 minutes now. I'm going to speak like really, really fast, so you've got to listen really fast because I've got a lot that I need to say. Be grateful and be thankful. Be more likable. A grateful heart makes you look good. And you know, I'm going to stand here, and please don't think I'm being proud. When about 3 or 4 years ago, I chose to be grateful. I chose to keep a gratitude journal. I chose to be intentional in being grateful for the small things, like my pillowcase, like the fact that I have a brush to brush my hair, that I had an argument with my husband where I can then go and execute forgiveness. I was thankful for those things. Do you know, as I'm getting older, people are telling me I'm looking younger. I don't believe that's anything to do with my genes. That's Jesus. Because I'm following him in forgiveness, in gratitude, in obedience. Does that make sense? And that's not me taking any glory for that, not even giving it to my parents as genetic. No, it's because I'm doing it God's way. And he says, be thankful. He says, be grateful. The problem is we focus and we think on the wrong things. Take your thoughts captive. In Swaziland, we have such a problem with this. Learn to say no. Learn to say later, I can't. But we're so worried about what the other person will think. Will they like me? Will they judge me? I'm supposed to be a Christian. Does Jesus say yes to everything? So who do we think we are? Semi-gods? The problem is when you don't have boundaries, people, you affect your mental health because you overload your plate. Because you want to be a people pleaser as opposed to a God pleaser. Remembering not every good thing is God, and people's eyes are going to go, huh? But God is good. I didn't say God is not good. Not every good thing is God. What do I mean? There's a beggar on the street. It's a good thing to help, right? I give him 50 rand. Tomorrow he died from an overdose of drugs. Was that God? No, because I didn't bother to seek God. I thought I'm doing good. God tells Celeste to look after the orphans. She decides, no, she's looking after the widows. Who's going to see to the orphans? Is that good? Is it God? Do you understand what I'm saying? Learn to say no. Learn your value, your worth. And I promise you, you'll very quickly learn to say no. I must say, when I learned about boundaries, it was after my father passed away. I had to set boundaries. I was the person that was a yes woman to everything because I didn't know my value and my worth. Now, best you know, I can tell you no with a smile. I'm not doing it nastily. I'm doing it to maintain my mental health, to enable you to be a better person, to take responsibility, and to make sure I have no resentment to you later because I did something I didn't want to do, and also not to let down the other person I committed to because I don't know how to say no. Does this make sense, people? I always say, somebody doesn't like me because I'm being truthful to what I can and cannot do. It's not a Celeste problem. It is a you expect and want from me to do what you want. That's an entitlement problem. Keep that in mind. Boundaries bring respect. I have learned that as I've executed boundaries, people have a lot more respect for me. People who have seen me for therapy will tell you, if you come late, you will still only get the amount of time you booked for, and I will charge you for the full session, because that's a boundary. If I say I'm going to be there at 10, I'll be there at 10 to, and if I'm not, I will take responsibility for it, because that's a boundary. Not one of my clients have ever left because of that, because boundaries bring respect. People will respect you more when they see you respect yourself, your time, and your mental health, your being and your capacity. Be true to you and stand for what you believe. I'm not that person about, oh, it's all about me, self-love. No. Be true to who God says you are. God did not call me to save the world. He called me into mental health. He called me into mental health and spirituality, and that's where I will walk. If somebody comes to me and says to me, Celeste, please can you come and do a talk on, I don't know, writing a book? I can do it. Why can I do it? Because there's Google. I can just go and Google. There's artificial intelligence. Give me a presentation on writing a book, and I can come and deliver because I can talk. But that's not my truth. So walk in your truth that God has set you to walk in. Boundaries bring respect and leads to resentment and ends relationships when we don't implement boundaries. We think that if we keep saying yes, everyone will love us. No, that's not the reality. Because the day you say no, they're going to hate you because you set them up for failure. Now I want to talk about the transpersonal mental health, the spiritual stuff, the religion and spirituality. Religion and spirituality. And you're going to hear why I'm bringing both those up. You may be thinking, why am I separating them? Because they are separate. Both of them are really good for your mental health. And you may be saying, so who's religious and who's spiritual? Christians, as far as I'm concerned, we need to be spiritual. Spiritually meaning we have a relationship with God. Religion can be quite rigid. It's rules and regulations. So with all due respect to most of the other religions, the problem is there's no relationship. There's no intimacy. No one is talking back to you in religion. In spirituality, your God is talking to you. The Holy Spirit is ministering to you. However, both religion and spirituality will impact mental health in a positive way. Why then does WHO leave out spirituality? You're failing us in some regard. Both religion and spirituality allow you to tolerate stress, allow you to be hopeful, to have peace, to have purpose, and to forgive. I don't believe we can forgive on our own. I don't believe it's possible. In my heart, I do not want to forgive anyone who's hurt me. I need God to help me. So spirituality and religion are going to help me. How does God relate to mental health, you may be asking? He shows He cares for you by providing you with the things that you need. Seatley listed most of them. A therapist, access to medication, time with Him, good support system, and many, many other things. A church family. He did not put those things there just for fun. They are there to be utilized for a purpose. I do not believe that God will heal everybody only through prayer. He was the great counselor. It is my desire to emulate Him as the great counselor. He was a healer. It is a doctor's desire, hopefully, to emulate Him in healing. He's a judge. He has set the tone for us, and He will use what He needs to use. And sometimes it's more than just prayer. It's prayer plus, plus, plus. And we've got to ask Him that. I sometimes think we over-spiritualize stuff and be like, are you praying enough? If you know I'm spending 24 hours praying, how dare you even say that to me? Maybe God wants you to see a doctor. Maybe God wants you to go and get other help. That's you and God, and you've got to see you, and that is why spirituality is what Christianity is about, because He will tell you, not your neighbor necessarily. Does this make sense, people? A great therapist, for me, is somebody who, in their regard, has a connection with God. I cannot tell you, any of you, who you are. I cannot tell you what you're capable of. I cannot tell you what you can and cannot do, where you're going in the future. Only God can. And so I will push you in that direction. I'm telling you now, if you ever come to me for therapy, best you know. I'm not leaving this out. You'll tell me you don't want me to preach, I'll send you back to somebody else. I don't know how to do my work without Jesus, because I'm just the same as you with the degree that says a master's, which actually means nothing. At the end of the day, it's earthly. If anyone's been into my office, I don't have my degree on my wall. That's not who I am. I'm a child of God. I'm emulating the great counselor. I need to post my Bible on the wall because that's my degree. Does this make sense? Loving God with your mind means utilizing the things He provides. Religion will bring rigid thinking. It will bring over-dependence on laws and rules. Imagine if I was only a religious person. I would be hated. The people would be looking at me and thinking, what kind of Christian is she? She sometimes swears. I'm on a journey. She's got road rage. She's judgmental. Please don't look at me, because all of you here have your own issues. But God is gracious and merciful and loves us and works in our hearts to move away from that. Does that make sense? And that is what I do in my work for mental health. I help you walk and move towards what God wants, because it's not up to Celeste to say where you need to be. I don't have that authority. Religion is a specific set of organized beliefs and practices, usually shared by a community or group. Spirituality is an individual practice and has to do with a sense of connection and relationship to God, nature, others, and surrounding. When I say nature, I am not talking about you going to sit under the trees and talk to the tree. I'm talking about God's creation, enjoying His creation, being one with His creation. So please don't think that I'm being new agey. I'm not. I'm acknowledging that God created the world. He created the sun, the moon, and the stars for us to enjoy, to remind us of who He is. Religion is attributed to traditional values and practices, which sometimes as Christians we can be. We can be rigid. You must not. The 10 Commandments are there and they're law. But then Jesus came and He said, no, I want a relationship with you. I want to help you with that. And you may be thinking, hey, Celeste is preaching. Well, I'm so sorry, but that's what mental health is. It's spirituality, it's your relationship with God, what God says. It's not what I say, it's not what Freud says. Freud is the godfather of psychology. It helps people when you have a relationship with God, and this is where I'm going to end, to find your purpose. When you have purpose, you will do what I'm doing, for instance, just going over time and not wanting to stop. I don't want to say please leave if you want to leave, because there's questions and answers, and there's a half a person that's going to present, or half a story. And I don't want you to miss it. But the reality is, I have reached a point where I feel that God will stop me and He will lead me, and I will still submit to the authorities, but sometimes it's hard because I have a sense of connection and I have purpose. I am walking in my purpose. I do not wake up a day in my life to think I'm going to work. I have a hobby I get paid for. And that is what everyone wants, and your mental health will start up there. Because I wake up in the morning with purpose, everything else that comes my way, I can deal with because I have purpose. I look at it through the eyes of my purpose. Does this make sense? I know why I'm here. I'm not here to make friends. I'm not here for you to like me. I'm here to share the gospel through mental health. I'm here to equip you through mental health to have a solid relationship with Jesus. That is what I'm here for. So all of this that sounds like preaching, or sounds like, oh, but that's all Christianese. It's not mental health. Well, I'm sorry. That's what it's about. It's about you finding your purpose. It's about you walking in what God planned for you to walk in. It brings a sense of belonging in the world. It inspires appreciation and awareness of a person's interaction with the environment. Your mental health benefits are so, I can't explain just how limited they are when you're not walking in purpose. So when I have a fight with a friend or a disagreement, I hold on to my purpose. When I have a disagreement with my husband, I still hold on to my purpose. When financially I'm struggling, I'm holding on to my purpose. When I'm not falling pregnant, I hold on to my purpose. How, Celeste? Because there's a lady that's going to come and see me that doesn't have children, and she's not going to know how to deal with it, and I can help her. There's a lady whose father died, and he was her best friend. I know how to help her because I've walked in my purpose. Does this make sense, ladies? The takeaway for me is, if it's presented in a supportive way, spirituality, you can help people improve their mental health and promote recovery. I can go on and on and on, but I'm going to stop here. I want to say to you all, though, please remember that your mental health is your responsibility. It's not the responsibility of the doctor. It is not my responsibility as a psychologist. It's not Sitle's responsibility as a psychological counselor. We are tools. We are vessels to be used. It is not Pastor Bonsile's responsibility for your spiritual health and your relationship with God. She's a tool. It is up to you. You cannot, and I really want to actually speak a lot to the parents to say, parents will leave their children in Sunday school and expect the Sunday school teacher to teach them about Jesus. No. The Sunday school teacher is to accelerate what you have taught at home. The psychologist is to accelerate what you are doing at home that's healthy. The doctor is to accelerate. Doctors can give you medication, operations, and. If you don't do what they say, you're not getting healed. You cannot blame the doctor. So I want to encourage you with your mental health to take responsibility, to accept where you are, and ask yourself in a healthy way, what next? Find a support system. Engage in wholesome, healthy activities that will get your blood going, to get your, we call it exercise. I call it healthy activities. Exercise, eat well, sleep well, and above all else, please spend time with God. Worship, pray, repent, and continue to fill your spiritual life. I hope I have been able to impart a little bit of knowledge for you, but at the end of the day, if you want more, go to your Bible. It will give you all that you need. And one day I'll have a book that will have Celeste's name on it and her story, but it will be the Bible. Just add it to my life if you want to read it as well. Thank you very, very much.